besties, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. So I recently posted a video of me trying to finish as many books as possible that I'm in the middle of. When I started that video, I was in the middle of 14 books and I was able to get through 6 books in that video, which is kind of crazy, but it felt so good to finally finish some of the books that I'm in the middle of, because some of those books I literally started months ago and then I just never picked back up and never finished. But I was like 75% through it and it's like, girl, why didn't you just finish the book? It makes no sense. So if you haven't seen that one yet, go watch that one first and then come back to this one, because this is going to be part 2 to that video. I have 8 books left on my currently reading shelf on Goodreads, and I want to try to finish all 8 of those. That kind of feels unhinged to say out loud. Do I realistically think I'll be able to do it? No, but that is what we're going to be doing in today's video. I think the first book that I want to pick up and try and finish is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This is a mystery thriller. I started this one months ago. If you don't know, this book is about an old money rich family, and one day the entire family gets murdered in the house except for one girl named Lenora Hope. But she's like so traumatized from the instance that she like never spoke again, and so she still lives at this house, but at this point it's been like so many years since the murder happened that she's like old and needs like hospice care. Is that what it's called? When a nurse comes to your house and takes care of you. And so the story is basically about the nurse that goes to her house to take care of her. I love the like scenery of this book because, first of all, on the cover, because I think I've said this before, I love like thrillers specifically that have like the location on the cover, because I feel like it helps me envision the vibe of the story so much better, if that makes sense. So I don't know, the story, you basically follow the nurse. She goes into this like creepy home, meets Lenora Hope. She supposedly is like not able to talk or anything, but one day she starts typing messages to her on a typewriter, and so like that is kind of the story. It's like, did Lenora Hope do it? No one really knows what happened to the family. No one was ever caught for the murders. So that's like the big mystery. So I think I want to finish this one first. I feel like it's just going to go by super fast, and I really want to know what happens. Like, this was one of the first books that I bought when I started reading almost a year ago, so it is like killing me inside that it's still sitting on my shelf and I have not finished it. So book number 1. The second book that I want to mention, I have been going back and forth between reading it on my Kindle and listening to the audiobook, but I think that I'm just going to audiobook the rest of it because it's honestly been really entertaining through audiobook. And I feel like when I read it on my Kindle, I've been getting more confused than just like listening to it. When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I have made it 118 pages. I feel like all these books, I'm like, I'm 100 pages in, and then I just decided to stop. Anyway, I feel like I don't know how to explain this book because I haven't really made it far enough in this book for like things to completely make sense to me, to be honest. And this is a really long book. It's 640-ish pages, so I'm only 100 out of over 600 pages through, so it makes sense I don't really know too much yet. What I will say is, so far in the book, I love the way that this world is described. Like, it has dragons, and the only other like dragon book that I've read is Fourth Wing, and this is like so far very different. But one thing about these dragons, and I think why it's called When the Moon Hatched, is like millions and millions of years ago, a bunch of dragons like went up into the sky and curled in a ball, and they kind of like calcify, so they're called moons. But like in this world all around, there's like all these moons, but they're just like calcified dragons that are like balled up and floating in the sky, and then every now and then they will like fall from the sky and like break apart, and that's like how they die or something. I don't really know, but in this book you're basically following an assassin for the Führer de Oth. I know I said that wrong. Her name is Rave, and so far we've just been seeing her life as an assassin. I don't really know how else to explain this. I'll have to, like, when I get farther through this, kind of give some more details, because right now I still feel like I just don't know. So yeah, I'm gonna be listening to this on audiobook. And I think the book that I will read once I am done with The Only One Left is another thriller. It is Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. This one is I'm pretty sure it's more of a mystery than a thriller. Essentially, one day the dad and the son go out for a walk in a park, but only the son returns. But the catch is the son is nonverbal. I think he has a condition called Angelman's syndrome. Yeah, so he has a rare genetic condition called Angelman syndrome and cannot speak. Basically, the dad goes missing, and throughout the story you're like uncovering secrets about the dad and trying to figure out what happened to him and where he went. So these are the 3 books that I'm going to start today's video off with, starting off with some thriller vibes. I feel like thriller and fantasy is a great way to go into September. I'm just so ready for fall, guys. I hate the summer. So we're gonna stick with thriller and fantasy vibes to try and bring on the fall vibes while it's literally like 110 degrees outside. I'm gonna start reading. It is 12:12, angel number. Right now it's 12:12. I need to leave to pick Bowie up from school at like 2:20. I have like 2 hours to get some reading done today. I feel like I can make it pretty far into The Only One Left before I need to go pick him up from school. I'll probably check in with you guys later tonight. Okay, the longest intro ever, like always. The battery's dying. Hold on. Hello. It has been a few days. It is now Thursday when I started this vlog. I think it was either Tuesday. No, it was Monday when I started this vlog. So it's been 2 days. When I last talked to you guys on Monday, I had just sat down to start reading The Only One Left, which I will update on. But that day I read for a little bit. I read The Only One Left, and then I don't think I really read anymore that night. I just started feeling very like lazy. Like lazy in the way that like sometimes when I'm feeling lazy, all I want to do is sit down and relax and read a book. But I was feeling lazy in the way that like I wanted to be a 100% vegetable, watch a movie, and then disappear. So that's what I did. And then on Thursday, I woke up and I just wanted to be super ultra productive. And so the entire, wait, not Thursday, Wednesday, yesterday, I woke up and I was just feeling so productive. And so I listened to When the Moon Hatched all day long. Like when I tell you all day, I think when I updated you guys, I was on page like 100 and something of this book, and I'm now on page 500 and something. So I listened to like over 400 pages of When the Moon Hatched yesterday. I got so much done, like so much stuff that I've just been putting off for so long since we have moved. I was gonna record it, but then I was like, you know, I'm not going to, because I feel like every single reading vlog, I'm like, I have so much laundry to do and I'm gonna listen to an audiobook, because that's what I do every single week. Like when you have kids, I mean, just in general, it's like the laundry's never really done, you know? So every single week I put it off, and then the day comes where I have to spend the entire day doing laundry. So I did that, and then I just completely reorganized the kids' room, went through their closet, got rid of a bunch of clothes that they just like don't wear anymore that were just in the way. Did the same in my room. Like it was just a lot of organizing and stuff, but it was so nice because I literally just got so lost in this world. So I feel like I have so many updates for this, but I will talk about The Only One Left first, because that's obviously what I started reading first and the last time that you guys saw me. That day, I only ended up reading, I think like 60 pages of The Only One Left. I don't even remember how much I recorded. Like I feel like I didn't even really record that much on Monday. So sorry, I'll try and be better for the rest of the video, but you know, I only read like 60 pages of The Only One Left. I feel like not much more has happened. I'm like halfway through the book now. I think I'm on page 150 and there's like 370. So actually I'm not quite halfway, but I'm like almost halfway through the book. And I feel like not much has happened. It's definitely been entertaining so far. Like I haven't been bored throughout the story, but I just feel like not much is going on. We're 150 pages into the book and I think that this is only the third day, you know? So we're kind of like, it's a little bit slow. I don't know how I'm feeling about this one. It's not boring by any means. It's not boring, but it's not like thrilling, you know? Like I don't know if this is a mystery or a thriller. I don't know. Maybe my opinion will change on this in the second half of the book though. Maybe the first half of the book is just more setup and more... That's where I'm at with The Only One Left. I haven't picked it up since Monday. Then we have When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. First of all, she is so thick, but let me tell you, I love the way that this book was printed because one, have you ever seen such a floppy, thick girl? And it's not even like cracking the spine. And this is why, sorry, this is such a tangent, but every time that I see TikToks of people like making fun of people who don't crack their spines because, you know, whatever, I'm like, I don't necessarily have anything against people who crack the spine, but I just feel like it's very easy not to, you know, like this is such a thick book. And I feel like if you just like, you know, when you first start a book, you can like train the pages, you know, so you can do that to kind of make it more floppy. But like this book is so thick. I feel like if you just semi support the spine while you're reading it. You don't have to like read the book like this. You just, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, it's not a big deal. Read your books however you want to read them. I just think of that every single time that I'm reading. I'm like, it's not even that big of a deal. Like, I don't know why it's such a huge controversial thing. Anyway, I love how floppy this book is. The reading experience of this is just chef's kiss, which I know I was talking about listening to the audiobook, but I was enjoying the audiobook so much that last night I ended up picking up the physical copy and reading it for a couple of hours as well after listening to it all day. That's how good it is, you guys. Like, I listened to this for like, it had to have been like 7 hours at least straight, and then we did dinner and bedtime, and then I ate dinner, and then I sat down and continued reading. Like, it was so just entertaining. The other thing I love about this copy is like the thickness of the pages. Like, you're not gonna be able to tell, but it's like the perfect thickness. I also love like at the beginning of each chapter there's like little artworks, and then let me see if I can find one. Sometimes they find like little notes and stuff, and they will like include a graphic of the note. I don't know, I'm just like really enjoying the physical copy of this. Such a random little tangent. Let me stop talking about that now. Let's talk about the actual book. When I first started listening to this audiobook, I feel like my expectations for the book went down. Like, my expectations were very high because a lot of people were saying like, oh, it has dragons, it's like another Fourth Wing. Incorrect. If you go into this wanting another Fourth Wing, you're gonna be disappointed because it's just not the same. Literally, the only thing I feel like this has in common with Fourth Wing is dragons, so you got me there. Other than that, no. So when I first went into this, I was a little bit not disappointed, but just not feeling as attached and excited about the story as I was anticipating. And I'm not gonna lie, I did feel that way all the way up until chapter 40. And I remember specifically that it was chapter 40 because throughout the whole chapter, I just was like, all of a sudden the plot like clicked and I started to understand like what the book was even about, you know what I'm saying? And like once I got that and I was like, oh, I think this is where we're going. Oh my gosh, this is actually so good. Wait, you know, like, wait, I think I like this. And I remember looking down at my phone so I could log away what chapter it was on, that I had that moment of, wait, I see potential. Keep in mind, that's page 324. So it did take me about halfway through this book to actually care and to actually feel like I really like the story. Take that as you will. I feel like part of that is because I went into it expecting fun dragon time like Fourth Wing. If you are a very new beginner into fantasy, you wouldn't like this. I feel like the only reason that I even started liking it after the halfway mark is because I have read a decent amount of fantasies at this point. I feel like I wouldn't consider myself a beginner fantasy reader anymore. Woo! I've moved up a level, but I feel like I'm just intermediate. Like, I feel like I don't know. I still really don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't know if I ever will feel like I know what I'm talking about, to be honest, but I feel like I've just entered like intermediate because it's like just a lot of setup. Like, I genuinely feel like until chapter 40, it was just a lot of like random little scenes that were kind of leading up to the main story. And I think that this series is supposed to be like 3 books and they're all going to be like thick ones like this. So like that's a lot of information, but yeah, so it took me about halfway, but then once I hit that point, the story is just so good. And like listening to it, when I tell you it's so entertaining, but it's not in a way that crazy things are happening every 5 seconds. Like, a lot of it is literally just conversations and things happening and a little bit of the backstory here and connect this dot here. Like, it's just small things. So it's nothing, what is it, like gripping your seat? Is that the saying? Like, is that the saying? A lot of it is not anything crazy like that, but while I was listening to the audiobook, I found the time passing so fast yesterday because I just wasn't even thinking about what I was actually doing. I was just like so lost in the world. And also, if you go into this, I've heard people say like, oh, it's amazing, enemies to lovers, like all this stuff. I feel like, yes, there is enemies to lovers in this. However, like, I'm on page 568 and I feel like the enemies didn't start lovering until like 50 pages ago. Like, you cannot go into this wanting like a Fourth Wing, enemies to lovers, dragons, not at all, because I feel like the main point of this book is the plot and like the characters and not the romance. The romance is just like a cute little side thing, and maybe it'll be more important in the next book, or maybe I'm speaking too soon because I do still have like 100 pages left in this, but I just feel like it's not at the forefront of this book. If you want a lot of like romance scenes, and you know, that's not what you're gonna get. But I am pleasantly surprised. The little crumbs of romance, like I said, that we have been dropped in the last few chapters, I have been just... I remember I was putting up clothes yesterday and someone said something and I literally stopped what I was doing and I was like, Oh my god. I feel like I just said a whole lot of nothing, but also everything I needed to say. My goals for today is to finish both of these. That way, the next few days I can just focus on the other 3. Was it 3 or 4 other books? I am, in fact, going to start off by finishing When the Moon Hatched. I don't know if I'll be finishing it on audiobook because, like I said, I have become a lot more invested just within the last, like, 75 pages of the book. I do need to refill my vitamins, so maybe I will start off by listening to the audiobook while I refill my vitamins, and then I will switch to just reading it, or if I'm enjoying the audiobook, maybe I'll just sit and listen to the audiobook and read at the same time. You know what? That's probably what I'll do because I love doing that. Sometimes listening to the audiobook while reading along is like the superior experience, so I might just do that instead. Okay, let me stop talking and let's do it. Finished When the Moon Hatched. I had to take a couple of minutes to like think about what I just read, and honestly I am just like, I went from confused through the first half of the book to like really enjoying and loving the plot, and now I feel like I am landed back at a little bit confused and also somewhat a little disappointed, but I feel like it's because I let myself get my hopes up too much from where I started at, not expecting enough. Does any of that make sense? Literally, I finished this, immediately went to TikTok and was like trying to find an explanation, and the amount of TikToks that I saw where people were like, when you finish the book feeling like you know less than when you started, and I honestly feel like I kind of feel that right now because I'm just like, the last like 50 pages were just confusing to me, and I don't know if I'm just dumb or if that was confusing. Let me start off by saying the last thing that I was saying about romance was you just get like crumbs. I don't think that was a big part of it. Right after I said that, there was like 2 to 3 straight chapters of smut, and I feel like the last 200 pages there was so much smut or like talk of smutty activities, you know, like just out of nowhere. I was like, where has this been the rest of the book? It's such a different vibe, I guess. That was interesting. I feel really conflicted on what to rate this. I haven't even rated it on my Goodreads yet because I just feel conflicted. Part of me wants to rate it a 3.75 because there was a good chunk of this book that I really did thoroughly enjoy, but then part of me wants to rate it a 3 because I am so like back and forth. So much happened in this and not all of it was necessarily necessary, but then I think about everything that happened that I did really love and enjoy, and I really love the world and some of the aspects to the world, and I feel like a lot more could have been done with the dragons. Like I feel like they were just kind of there. Like yes, they were a big part of it, but I just feel like they were also not. But maybe I was expecting them to be too much of the story, you know, like maybe that's my problem. I don't know. At this point, I feel like I'm leaning towards 3 because as much as I loved it, there's just so many other fantasies that I love so much more, especially for how long this is. I just feel like, I don't know, and I'm so confused by the ending. It's not even like a cliffhanger. It's just like I'm confused. Once we did get into the romance, I loved it. I feel like that's one of my favorite parts of this book. The romance in this was such a beautiful slow burn. I loved the way that it was written. I love the way that it was executed once we got there. No complaints on that. I am gonna go 3 stars because of the fact that my rating felt like it went up and then it went back down towards the end. The next book I want to finish today is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I am on page 100 and either 50 or 51, and nothing much happened in the 60 pages that I read yesterday. There was like one thing revealed that was like kind of shocking, but still like not as shocking as I wanted. Like I want a thriller that's gonna like, oh my god, you know, and this is not giving me that so far, so hopefully we get there. If not, I think there's two other thrillers that I'm in the middle of reading. Maybe one of those will give that to me. I don't know. I hope I'm not disappointed by this one too. I feel like that's like not a fun way to start off the video, and also I don't want to lose momentum by finishing 2 books and feeling disappointed by them, but we'll see. I've been on kind of an insane streak with books recently. Out of the last 10 books I've read, there's been so many 4 and 5 stars. Like I've just been getting honestly lucky with the books that I've picked up because it's insane to have that many high ratings one after another. So maybe my insane streak is just ending. But I don't know. I don't want to go into this book thinking like that. We got to think positive thoughts. We got to manifest another great plot twist that I won't see coming, that will leave my jaw on the floor and leave me wanting to read more. I probably won't read until after dinner. While I make dinner, I'm probably going to listen to the audiobook for Gone Girl. It's about this couple who are married and the wife comes from a really rich family and the guy does not. They're a couple who lives in New York, and one day he loses his job and one of his parents gets sick, and so they end up moving back to the small town that he grew up in, but the town is collapsing. I think they said it's from the market crash or the financial crisis or something. Everyone in that town basically, all of the malls and all these businesses are shutting down. So there's a bunch of people without jobs there. The job market there is just not good. No one can find jobs. It's like a rundown town, that type of vibe. And so you're kind of looking at their relationship and both of them struggling to adjust to their new life there. And then one day, I think it was on the day of their anniversary, actually, their wedding anniversary, she goes missing. And that is the premise of the book. You get to see their life beforehand, then when she goes missing, and then you're following through the husband's perspective, him working with the police trying to figure out like what happened to her, where she went. And then you also get a dual timeline POV of the wife's diary entries from years prior. You're kind of getting dual POV of their story through how they met and their relationship and all these years leading up to when she went missing. And then in the current timeline, you get his POV. So it's kind of dual POV, but also dual timeline. What I was saying about that is I feel like, I don't know if it's just supposed to be like the way that the characters, it is the way that the character's written. He has a really misogynistic dad, and he talks about how he inherited some of those traits from his dad even though he didn't want to, just from being around him. And so I feel like just some of the stuff that he says really bothers me, but I feel like it's just, that's part of his character, I guess. That's been like my one weird thing that I feel like I don't like, is just whenever he says stuff I'm just like, ugh. But anyway, that was such a ramble. I will see you guys later tonight. I'm going to listen to Gone Girl while I make dinner and also try and read some of The Only One Left and see how far we can get through this. Look at that, 2 thrillers. I'm in the fall mood. Okay, goodbye. Happy Friday. As you can probably tell, it is actually Friday night. I did not record like anything during the day today. Literally all I did today is read. I think the last thing I recorded was me listening to the Gone Girl audiobook while I made dinner yesterday. Updates on that. I listened to the audiobook yesterday and then some of today as well. And I made it, I believe, like 60-something% in the book. And I have to say, the last time that I even like said anything about Gone Girl was that nothing had happened so far and the guy was kind of misogynistic and I don't know, I wasn't loving the characters. However, when I reached part 2, from the very beginning of part 2, I was immediately way more invested in where the story was going, because right when you start part 2, I feel like so much is explained about part 1, and I feel like it makes the things that I didn't like about part 1, it makes me not like them as bad, if that makes sense, because it feels like purposeful. I don't know if that makes sense, but sometimes there's things that are written into a story and then you finish the story and you realize like, okay, it really didn't need to be said that way or written that way or whatever it is. But I feel like already just what's been explained through part 2, the pieces are just clicking together, and I like the way that they're clicking together, and I'm happy about that, because I just feel like there's been books where I'm not satisfied with the way that the pieces come together. So it has gotten way more interesting plot-wise, and the pieces are starting to fall together, and it's been very satisfying and entertaining to listen to. So I'm thoroughly enjoying that right now. Also today I did finish The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I ended up rating this 3 stars. Wait, I think I rated it 3.5 stars actually. The last thing that I updated this with, I was like halfway through the book and I was like, it's been 150 pages and it's only been 3 days. I think the majority of this book takes place over just over a week. week or something like that, which is really weird. And I feel like the ending was very entertaining. And one thing I will applaud about this is that I love thrillers that have not just one main plot twist, and that's pretty much it. I love thrillers that have like plot twist after plot twist after plot twist. A great example of that is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It was just like one thing after another that I did not see coming. And this book, I feel like the reason that I rated it 3 stars is because there are a lot of positives to this book. Like, I love the setting of this book. I feel like it's the perfect ambiance going into spooky season because it's set in like a spooky old, I almost said castle. It's a mansion. It's a spooky old mansion. It's like on the edge of a cliff. In the book, it's described to be like tilted sideways because the cliff is kind of eroding because of the crashing of the waves over time. And so over time, the cliff is kind of leaning and leaning. So when you go into the house, it's like this huge abandoned mansion. There's like lots of creepy noises. The whole thing is like on a tilt because it's kind of going with the ledge. So that whole setting of it being almost abandoned mansion vibes, I feel like is just the perfect vibes going into spooky season. So 1, loved the setting. 2, I really do feel like I like Riley Sager's writing. I know the last time that I updated about this book, I said I feel like there was nothing thrilling about it. And since I said that, there was definitely multiple scenes where I found myself scared, which I feel like has not happened in a book. Not like scared, but it was just like suspenseful. You're anticipating what is going to happen next. My eyes couldn't stop reading, obviously, because I was like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? But I was like nervous to read what was gonna happen because I was seeing it like a movie in my head. And so it was like watching a scary scene when you're like, you can't close your eyes, but you don't want to look. That's like the feeling that I was getting. So I also really enjoyed Riley Sager's writing when it came to like suspenseful scenes. And then lastly, I do feel like the plot twists were really good. I didn't see the plot twist coming, even though I felt like I had guessed what was gonna happen, which I feel like I say this all the time. I had such a clear idea of what I knew was gonna happen and it just like didn't happen. I do also appreciate that I wasn't able to guess the plot twist. However, I feel like the reason that it is sitting kind of middle of the road at a 3.5 for me is because the plot twists, while I was gagged at them, I feel like at the very end of the book, there was a lot that was like thrown in there. And I feel like it would have been better with further explanation because some of the actions of some of the characters, it just felt like they were just doing it to make the plot interesting and not necessarily for an actual justified reason. And so it was kind of throwing me off because as these characters were like making decisions, I was like, why are they doing that? Like that actually makes no sense to me. And maybe the reason just flew over my head, but I just feel like that was my number 1 complaint is at the end of the book. I just feel like there was stuff that was just thrown in there to make the story entertaining, which it did make it entertaining, but it definitely docked points for me because it kind of took me out of the story a bit when I was reading it because I was just like, I don't know, like that just feels so random. Why are they doing that? I feel like that's the main thing that took it down, but I landed on 3.5 stars because I definitely would still recommend this book to someone if you were looking for something going into spooky season and if you wanted something with like kind of gothic thriller vibes. I feel like this was so good and the plot twist did get me. I just feel like it's not the best thriller that I have read. That being said, I just wanted to have like a chill, cozy night and I think I just want to read something on my Kindle. And I think what I'm going to read tonight is, I think it's called Sidetracked, but it's the 2nd book in the Mindfuck series, which if you watched part 1 to this video, in that video I read the 1st book in the Mindfuck series, and since then I did start the 2nd book, which I feel like is so stupid because the entire purpose of these videos is to get through books that I'm in the middle of, and so it feels really dumb to be starting new books in between filming videos about trying to finish books I'm in the middle of because I'm just undoing my own work, but I couldn't help myself. It was just the way that the 1st book ended. I wanted to start the 2nd book, and so I did, and now I want to finish it. These books are just so nice because they're so short that it's like you really can just read them in one setting. I am only 9% into the 2nd book and it says I only have 2 hours and 21 minutes left, so I feel like that's why I wanted to read the Mindfuck series separately because if you don't know, if you didn't watch part 1, the Mindfuck series is 5 separate books that are each 100 to 150, maybe 150 to 200 pages. They're 5 separate books that in paperback are combined into into one book called the Mindfuck series, and it is essentially a serial killer romance. The FMC is a serial killer, but she's like I cannot think of the right word, but I'm just thinking of like Batman, you know, like she's not vigilante, but she kills serial killers, but for a good reason. Like she goes after other serial killers, and then also she has like a list of people who have done something to her in the past who she is going after specifically. So she's a serial killer specifically with them, but then she also kills other serial killers, I think. Basically, she ends up in a relationship with a guy who is in the FBI, specifically a guy who hunts serial killers. So it is a serial killer dating a guy who is in charge of catching serial killers with the FBI. And that's basically the premise of the entire series. I finished book 1. I rated it, I think, 4 stars. It was really, really good for the amount of pages it was. It did a really good job at getting me connected to the character, and also I feel like a lot honestly happened without it feeling rushed. So I was pleasantly surprised with the first book. I ended up going into the second book. The second book just immediately starts off right where you leave off in the first book, so that's super nice. You're just immediately put back into the story. So I think I am going to spend tonight finishing the second book in the Mindfuck series while Mark plays Xbox. I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna read this, and I'll see you guys the next time that I see you. Good morning, besties. It has actually been like 4 days, I think, since the last time I recorded, which I'm pretty sure the last thing that I recorded was after I had finished The Only One Left. I went into the second book in the Mindfuck series. I have since finished that. It was so good. I think I rated that one 4.5 stars. It was definitely a lot more intense than the first book. Like I remember after I finished the first book in the Mindfuck series, I was like, oh, I love this, because they're honestly really short. And so I was like, oh, I'll have something like short and sweet to read between other reads. And someone commented on the video and was like, the fact that you just described the Mindfuck series as short and sweet is honestly insane. And I get what they were saying now, okay, because it's about a serial killer. So, you know, there's some like, definitely look up the trigger warnings if you're gonna read that series, but it's kind of, and by kind of, I mean, it's really insane. Honestly, it's like the same way that Butcher and Blackbird has things in it where you're just like, what did you say? You know, what did you say? So yeah, kind of crazy. It was a lot more intense, I feel like, than the first book, because the first book obviously is like an introduction into the story. It's not that long, so like what all can you really fit in it, you know? So the second book I feel like was a lot more intense just because you're more into the actual story and not as much just like the setup. Really, really good though. And the place that one ended off on, you're like, excuse me, what did you say? Very good. I cannot wait to get into the next one. Honestly, as soon as I finished that one, I was so tempted to go in and start the third book, which is exactly what happened after I read the first book. I just wanted to like drop everything else and start the second book. I cannot do that because I need to get through the books that I'm already in the middle of. So I was looking at my Goodreads to see like what other books I'm in the middle of that I could choose from to start next. And I realized that I was in the middle of reading The Naturals, which is like described by a lot of people as a YA Criminal Minds type of vibe. It's basically about a group of teenagers who all has natural abilities, not in like superpowers, but they are all very gifted in like natural ways. So like one of the girls is just really good at profiling, and actually one of the guys is a profiler as well, but they're just like naturally really, really good at it, like gifted at it. Another girl is really good with math and statistics and stuff like that, like freakishly good. So it's things like that where it's not like a superpower, but they are like very gifted in those ways, if that makes sense. And essentially you follow around this group of teenagers who are in a group called The Naturals, and you follow them going through like a school, I guess, or like a training and learning how to like solve cases and stuff. And I feel like that's why it's giving Criminal Minds, because it's a lot about like solving cases. It's not a lot about solving, it is about solving cases. That's like what it's about. And I felt like that would be the perfect vibe for after finishing the second book in the Mindfuck series and like wanting more of that. But because the second book was a little bit more like intense and aggressive, it would be perfect to go into a YA, because then I can kind of still get that vibe without it being as like intense and crazy, you know? So I picked that one back up. I think I only have an hour and 30 minutes left. I'm really, really enjoying it. I feel like I'm not super like emotionally invested in it, but it's a very entertaining story. And I don't know if it's because it's like a YA like mystery type thing. I feel like the only YA mystery that I've gotten like very into was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I listened to the reappearance of Rachel Price and all this stuff, and it was very entertaining, like very good, but I just feel like I don't get as invested in like YA stories, if that makes sense, but still like super good. So I'm reading that on Kindle Unlimited. I think I'm gonna finish that this morning. We dropped Bowie off at school a couple of hours ago and he has a half day today. So I have like 2 hours until it's gonna be time to pick him up from school. And then I once again have laundry to do. I literally feel like every single time that I am vlogging, I'm like, hey guys, I have more laundry. And I think I might have already said this in this video or the last video that I posted. I'm just like, always have laundry to do. So I think after we get Bowie from school and after I finish The Naturals, I am going to listen to the audiobook for Gone Girl, because I actually ended up getting through quite a bit of that the other night. I was like taking a bath and I didn't feel like watching a movie or anything, so I brought my Kindle into the bath and I turned on the audiobook and I literally just like laid in the bath and listened to the story for like hours. It was honestly so relaxing. So I did that for a few hours and I got through quite a bit of the audiobook, so I think I'm gonna listen to that while I put laundry away after we get Bowie from school and finish that up today as well. That is the plan for today. Also, super random tangent, a couple of weeks ago I cut curtain bangs, and ever since I've cut them I have loved them. Like, they've been so fun. They're not like styled right now, so they're not giving what they're supposed to give right now. Today is hair wash day anyway, that's why I haven't really bothered to fix them today. But I have been in such a crisis because I keep seeing videos of girls cut bobs and they look so cute, and now I am like, should I cut a bob? And it's literally all I've been thinking about, because like part of me just wants to like chop my hair off and like do a bob. So maybe next time you see me I'll have a little Willy Wonka bob. Anyway, I am going to finish The Naturals, do some laundry, and I will check in with you guys for my final thoughts and ratings on Gone Girl and The Naturals. Oh my god. Hey, it's your girl with her Willy Wonka bob. I did it. I chopped my hair off. It has been like 4 days since I last talked to you, because that day I finished those books and could not stop thinking about cutting my hair. So I had my mom cut my hair, and then I fell deathly ill and I have been just fighting for my life since then. I went to start editing this video today and I realized that I literally just never came back to this video. I don't even think I recorded myself finishing The Naturals or Gone Girl, but I wanted to still give my final thoughts, and please excuse my voice. The fact that I'm even able to talk right now is a miracle when I tell you that it has hurt to just have my eyes open. I'm not being dramatic. So just very quick final thoughts. I'll probably give a more in-depth review of these in a wrap-up. I think in a few days I'm going to do like a summer reading wrap-up of all the books that I read over the course of the summer, because I didn't really do individual wrap-ups all summer. Anyway, The Naturals, I'm pretty sure on my Goodreads I rated that 3.75. Honestly, the ending of it did catch me off guard. I thought, and I say this with every book, I thought I knew what was going to happen and then it did not happen. Surprise, I wasn't able to guess what was happening. I always think that I know where it's going and I literally never do. So I don't know like where my hope in myself comes from. Anyway, I love the twist. It was a very satisfying ending. On my Goodreads, I put, I love the Law and Order but make it YA vibes. I love the fact that even though it was YA, it was still such a good mystery and there was enough left in to still feel serious, which I feel like that's why I really like a lot of YA mysteries, because there was definitely enough in it to make it like heart pounding at times and like where you're genuinely just like so curious on what's gonna happen and like good twists and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel like heavy to read like some adult thrillers and mysteries feel. So I really appreciate that about YA like mysteries and thrillers. And then on top of that, I did also write this in my review. I love that there was like a little love triangle. I did not expect that. Honestly, I wouldn't say it's like a huge part of the plot at all. Like at all. It's very like subplot, but I did think it was so cute and it was so unexpected. I'm very intrigued to see if there's like more to that little subplot as well as we get farther into the series. I definitely want to read the rest of the books in the series. I think there's 2 more books. There's either 2 more books or 3 more books in a novella or something like that, but it reads super quick. I mean, like, I think the total time for me to read that book altogether was like 5 hours or something, and I don't really consider myself a super fast reader, so that to me feels like insane. So anyway, oh my god. Oh my god. I gotta stop talking. Okay, moving on to Gone Girl. I want to read my Goodreads review for this one too because my brain is just not working right now. I rated this 4 stars and I said, reading this book felt like when your best friend says, "I've got some tea," and then the entire time when they say something crazy and you gasp and say, "No," they're like, "Yeah, and just wait, it gets crazier," which genuinely I feel like that is how I felt throughout the book. Like, it started out with like, you know, whatever, but I'm telling you, the second half of this book is really where it was like good for me, because the first half, it's like I had some issues with the way that the male main character was written and just some like the comments, but then like through the second half it really felt like it actually like served a purpose to the story. Even though I still don't like the way that he was written and like the misogynistic comments and stuff, I feel like it did add a layer to his character and to the story, if that makes sense. And maybe that's like the wrong take, I don't know, but it didn't bother me as much. Obviously I would prefer that comments like that are not in books in general, like, but what I'm trying to say is sometimes stuff like that is in books and then you end the book and it's like, okay, that really hadn't like served no purpose. Like, I don't understand why they even put that in the book, but it at least made me a little bit less irritated about it because I felt like, okay, I guess it did serve some purpose. It wasn't completely, I didn't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, it started off slow, but the second half of this book was crazy. So good, and it really tied everything together so well that a lot of my complaints from the first part were no longer placed. Yeah, so everything I just said, I don't know, it was really good. 4 stars. I was expecting to rate it a lot lower based off of the entire first half of the book, so a 4 stars like was really a surprise to me by the end of that. But yeah, I just forgot whatever else I was gonna say. I was so tired and I feel like a bag of trash. If you have made it this far, I love you so much. Thank you for watching. Also, don't forget to follow me on my other social media. I have been trying to post more on my TikTok and also my Instagram and my Bookstagram. Everything is always linked down below. And also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Just click the little button and that way you won't miss notifications for when I upload in the future. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hopefully next time I see you, I'm feeling a little bit better. Until then, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.